Electric vehicles are all the craze now. Everybody's trying to tell us that the world that we're going to be living in is going to need it in the very near future. But I've been a little bit skeptical about EVs because, well, that's the question of range. So today we're going to test just how livable EVs are. And I brought in a special guest today to help me figure that out, which is my wife, because once you're married, you never run out of things to do. So today we're going to be crisscrossing Metro Manila in very bad weather just to see how much battery I can save, consume, and if I'll feel like EVs are really livable. So we are now on SLEX on the way to Molito because we decided to have brunch there first. And let me introduce you to the EV that we have today. And this is the Hyundai IONIQ 5 two-wheel drive long range. So we chose this, well, because our good friends at Hyundai were nice enough to lend us the one and only test unit. So we thank them for that. So before we get to Alabang, I want to talk about what you get in the IONIQ 5. So first things first, what you notice when you get into this car is the amount of space you have in the interior. From the outside, you can see that the car is wide, but inside is when you really feel how wide the car is. Like, if you can see in the camera, there's like so much space down here. You can put a dog. Yeah, you can put a dog here. He can comfortably lay down and he will be fine through a long journey. Yeah, a medium dog, maybe. Yeah, so there's the space. And then what you also get is this really nice looking interior, but it's also very clean. You can tell that Hyundai really decided to make the interior futuristic because this is an EV after all. So you get these nice screens, you know, you see all these nice blue lights and everything just feels modern. But at the same time, everything makes sense. I don't feel like it's a button fest overload where I'm like, oh no, what's gonna happen if I press this? Everything makes sense to me. And that's the most important thing about, you know, an interior like this, because, you know, with cars getting more and more complicated nowadays, it's nice to know that even if the IONIQ 5 is supposed to be a futuristic EV, they still kept it very ergonomic. So the leather in here, if I remember correctly, is, and Kelvin will probably correct me in the post-edit, is sustainable leather. I read that somewhere, and I hope that Hyundai Philippines brought that in here. So most of the leather and the panels that you see here are very sustainable, but they don't feel any different from real leather at all. So that's what's nice about it as well. You get, of course, two big screens here, one for your information, the car information, so you're driving. And then here's the big screen for the infotainment. You have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. It's not wireless, but it's there nonetheless. You also get the, what was I going to say? Oh, this center console here is very nice. There's actually a big space here where you can, I don't know what you would put here, but there's a big space here that you could put something pretty tall inside. It can also slide back and forward, so that's cool. The seats are also heated and ventilated. They're also both automatically adjustable. So in terms of features inside the IONIQ 5, you're not short of them at all. I think you have everything that you could possibly want in a modern car nowadays, because, well, you'll find out later, this IONIQ 5 does not come at a very low price. It's actually priced at a pretty high premium, but you don't feel shortchanged for what you're paying. So that's the most important thing. So here we are now at our next errand. We just had brunch. So the next thing we have to do is my wife and I were tasked to inspect the family lot somewhere here in Alabang. I can't disclose where for fear that my in-laws will kill me. So after that, we have more things to do. So just a little sit rep on the IONIQ 5. So from Pasig to Alabang and a little bit of traffic in between, we started I think with around 82% battery. Now we're at 76%, and the car says we have 346 kilometers of range. So far everything's still so good. I'm not nervous. So while my wife inspects the family lot, I think it's time to talk about some of the more interesting things about the IONIQ 5. First things first is the design. This car in fact has won the 2021 Red Dot Design Award, which is a pretty prestigious award actually in the world of design, apparently, because I don't know anything about design. But nonetheless, I agree with whoever voted for this car because it has this retro modern vibe that I just really like. It's not what you would call wow, but when you see it, it's just like, wow, that's a good looking car. It's handsome and also very pleasing to the eyes to look at. So that's the design. Even the color is this sort of matte finish that you have here. And there are just these little things that make it feel so modern and very forward thinking because this is an EV. Like for example, the door handles. So when I unlock it, they pop out like that. And when you lock it, they pop back in. So yeah, and it just looks really good. You have these enormous 20-inch rims that look very interesting. And another interesting tidbit I just want to point out, I don't normally mention the brand of tires, but the IONIQ 5 comes in Michelin Sport EVs. They're not just any normal Pilot Sport tires. So at least that's pretty cool, right? So moving on. Another neat thing I'd like to point about the IONIQ 5 is that it's such a spacious car. This trunk opening is enormous. Like, it's so big and you can really see the whole thing and my wife there. So the other things that you can find in the trunk are this is the home charger. So that's found here under this, along with the tire repair kit, because this doesn't come with a spare tire because there's no space, because the batteries that power the car are actually situated somewhere here. So going back to the size a little bit, according to the brand, this car is classified as a crossover SUV. And for me, I'm not so sure. I mean, it's big, but it reminds me more of like crossover slash hatchback. So it's like a cross hatch or a hatchover? I don't know. But yeah, they claim it's a crossover SUV, so let's just believe them, right? So now let's go to the front because there's something very interesting there as well. So another interesting thing about the IONIQ 5 is what you find here in the front. Normally it's an engine in normal cars, but since this is an EV, this is not an engine. In fact, it's a frunk or a front trunk where you can put some things. Well, it's not that big, so don't expect to be able to put a whole maleta inside. But I would also suggest that you don't put anything perishable because I'm pretty sure this part gets a little hot sometimes. So while we're here, I'd like to talk about also the periodic maintenance service of the IONIQ 5. We spoke to Hyundai when we picked up the car and they claimed that you only have to do a service every 15,000 kilometers, which is a pretty considerable gap between servicing. And the things that they check when you have their car serviced are mainly just things that wear out. So like your brakes, they have some liquids that they have to check and all of that because there is no engine to check. They claim that the servicing should also be faster than in normal internal combustion engine vehicle. But I'd like to point out these two reservoirs here. According to Hyundai, these are the reservoirs that cool the lithium-ion batteries. I asked even further if we can use normal engine coolant for that. No. So please, if you're thinking of buying an IONIQ 5, do not do that because this is a specialized liquid
only used to cool lithium-ion batteries. So in terms of cost, I'm sorry we don't have that figure, but maybe you could kind of guess it might be a little lower than, because you don't have to change any oil or any spark plugs or any, you know, other things like that. It's just liquids and brakes. So maybe the cost is a little lower. So there you have it. Those are just some of the interesting things about the IONIQ 5 in terms of the exterior and in terms of practicality.
I need to talk about the second row also, because we've been talking about space this whole time in terms of the IONIQ 5, and that's the most apparent here in the second row, because look how much room I have. Headroom, leg room, everything. And the great thing is you can adjust it, because this seat is very reclined right now, but you can recline it forward, you can get into a relaxed position, or you can just slide it forward and backward depending on how tall or short you are. So the things you get here: armrest with cup holders, your air conditioning vents are actually on the pillar over here, and then you get 2 USB ports down here. But what I like most is the view, because when you're laying back and being driven and chauffeured around, you can see this nice big panoramic roof. It actually doesn't open. You can only open the shades, but you can't open the window panel itself. But it's cool nonetheless. But I want to highlight what sitting here in the second row is that even if from the outside it doesn't look like an executive car, if I were an executive, I wouldn't mind, because of all the space and comfort that you get here in the back. It's not bad at all. So we're now on our way to the second to the last errand for the day. We're going to Mall of Asia from Alabang, because I don't know why my wife wants to go there. She has something important to do, according to her, but I can't ask her what because she's asleep. So while she's asleep, we can talk about the IONIQ 5's performance in terms of driving. Performance, comfort, safety, and all of those things. So powering this vehicle is a 72.6 kilowatt hour battery system that creates 217 PS and 370 Newton meters of torque. The transmission is only a single speed transmission, because EVs only require that. They don't need 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 150 gears. They just need one. So in terms of the performance, I can say I can't really show you right now how fast it really is. But what I can say is what they were saying about EVs giving you the instantaneous torque in terms of acceleration is really true, because it's either on or off. In other cars like internal combustion engine vehicles, the engine needs to spool up or work its way throughout the rev range to give you peak torque. This car gives you peak torque the moment you floor it. So it's quite an incredible sensation and actually quite intoxicating. It's just like you want to overtake everything and everyone on the highway. So I can say that in terms of performance, despite the normal power figures that this battery pack puts out, it's really not bad. It actually feels a lot more powerful because of the instant torque that you get the moment you step on the throttle pedal. So I like that. I like that a lot. And the other thing that I want to point out about the benefit of an EV is that also you don't get any emissions from the IONIQ 5 at all, because there is no muffler, there is no engine at all. So you're saving the earth, as they say. And another thing, adding to the comfort, apart from the fact that the interior rather is a nice place to be in, it's just the fact that there's no sound, additional sound that comes into the car from the engine. It just makes it just more serene, more peaceful. But although I have to point out the NVH levels could be a little better. Sometimes when more noisy vehicles pass by, I can kind of hear it, but it's not too bad. Overall, it's not like you're outside. It's not that noisy. It's fine. It's livable. So other things to talk about in terms of driving. So if you can see in the camera, there are these two paddle shifter like buttons here behind the steering wheel. That's not to shift gears, because as I mentioned, there's only one gear. So these are actually to increase or decrease the levels of the regenerative braking that the IONIQ 5 comes with. Regen braking, as they call it, is technology that turns the energy usually lost during braking into additional battery power. So that's technology found in Formula One cars and Le Mans cars and other motorsport related vehicles, and they try to translate that into EV. So throughout the day, I've noticed that the regen braking does help keep the range decent. From time to time, I see that the kilometer range goes up by a kilometer. It doesn't really increase it as much as you think. It really depends on the driving situation. Like if you're going downhill or in stop and go traffic, that's when the regen braking is really at its best. But other than that, it's really not so bad in terms of, because some people need to get used to regen braking because the braking force that you feel is more than a normal car. So if you have it on and you increase the level to the highest rating, you really move forward when the car brakes. But again, I feel like after a while you'll get used to that, so it's no fuss whatsoever. So another thing also, of course, is safety. Being an EV looking towards the future, every car manufacturer, and particularly Hyundai, are very keen on keeping people safe on the road. So this car comes with a lot of autonomous driving aids such as lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, all of those things, which I'm using right now. My foot is not on the pedals at all. The car is the one moving forward, braking for me. So as a complete car, the IONIQ 5 is exactly that. Nothing about it feels alien to me. It feels normal. It's like a normal car apart from the fact that it has no engine. So if you're coming from a normal car and you think of getting an EV, it's not much difference. There's no learning curve apart from that regen braking pedal that I was talking about. But there's really nothing really different about it. And in fact, I am inclined to believe that I think I would like an EV just for pure city driving, just so I can be relaxed in Manila traffic as long and as much as possible. So in terms of driving, the IONIQ 5 is a great car to drive. So we've just parked at the Mall of Asia here in Pasay. So I'm gonna finally find out what that mystery item errand that she wants to do is going to be. So let's just do another situation report. It's 4:45 p.m. We've arrived here, parked here in MOA, as I said. So we have 71% of battery left, and according to the graphic here, with climate control, it's 314 kilometers of range. Without climate control, 346 kilometers of range. So just to give you some sort of idea, we started aircon. Going back, to give you an idea, when we started the journey this morning, when we left the house, we had 82% of battery. So far we've used 11% only. So that's Pasig, Alabang, some part of Las Piñas. We've gone through heavy traffic in Alabang and on the Skyway, and we've only consumed that much. So that's just to give you an idea of how this car consumes its energy. So yeah, so we'll be back in a few. We'll just do the errands and then we'll continue to the last errand of the day. So the time now is 5:36. We just finished our errands. And the one thing she needed from the department store of the biggest mall in the country was a belt. A belt. So we're done with that. We have one last thing to do, which is go to Podium, because I need to recharge the car, and Podium has an EV charger there. So we're gonna go from Pasay at 5:30 on a Friday while it's raining to Pasig.
Tama ba? Chenin.
Tenen. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So we finally made it to our last stop, and everything was running so smoothly today until we got here. So let's do the good news first before the bad news. The good news is when we left MOA, it took us about an hour and a half to get here to Podium in Ortigas. When we left MOA, it was 71%. When we got here, it's only 67%. And it says 310 kilometers of range. So we didn't consume that much. And we passed through a lot of heavy traffic, heavy rain. We didn't take the most straightforward route. We had to go around to get here. The bad news is though, that's why I'm driving around right now, is that the only 2 slots for the charging station here in Podium are both taken. Unfortunately. So that there represents the current issue about EVs right now. While I agree that this car is good technology and I've said a lot of good things about it, that is the problem. We're lacking infrastructure. So I just needed to point that out. So right now we're still kind of figuring out what we're gonna do, because I'm still trying to find out if the people are gonna leave or if there's another charging station. So we'll get back to you. So we finally got a slot in the EV charging station here in Podium, but it took us about an hour because we parked it first normally, and then we had dinner and we just crossed our fingers. Luckily, when we got down after dinner, a slot was open, so we were able to park it, and now we're charging it. So right now we're at 67%. It says here on the gauge that to get to 100% is 4 hours and 15 minutes. We obviously can't stay here for 4 hours and 15 minutes, so we're gonna see how much it charges after an hour. And so here we are at journey's end. Our long day is finally complete. We've done all the errands that we've had to do, and it's around 10 p.m. already. We charged the car for about an hour, and when we got back, it was 73% from about 66%. So not bad. I mean, it's not a fast charger, so it's okay. But to sum it all up really, the experience that I had with the IONIQ 5 was a pretty decent one. It's very efficient when it comes to using up its energy. It's very comfortable, it's very peaceful, and very quiet. Not to mention again the environmental impacts that you have when you get an EV. But how much does it cost? Well, that's where it gets a little tricky. This car costs 3,698,000 pesos, which is a lot of money. But today, what I realized about the IONIQ 5 is that it's a statement, it's a lifestyle choice. If you choose to become someone who's conscious about the environment and the world we live in today, honestly, I don't think you can beat that. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel below, and also don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. This has been Pablo Salapantan of YugaAuto with a special guest of my wife. Thank you for watching. Paalam. No.